Hello guys, my name is Wale Farron. I'm a tech entrepreneur and you are watching Tech Roundup, your weekly opinion, views and analysis of the top tech events happening around the world with a focus on Nigeria. On today's episode, we'll conclude our Fintech Roundtable series, this time with a discussion on fintech-related investments. The Nigerian tech space in general has seen major validation from global investors over the past few years, and reports shows that over $400 million went into fintech-related startups in 2019. And amid this pandemic, Nigeria-based fintechs have already announced new rounds of investment this year. But will this trend continue? That's the question. To help us unpack this panel discussion was led by Deji, who is the Director of Platforms at EchoVC and a returning guest on the show. We covered several topics but focused on what investors might be doing differently going forward and how investments in fintech ideas and businesses across Africa might be impacted going forward. If you are an entrepreneur or you know someone who is a tech founder, you should send them this episode. I hope you find this interesting.
An independent study that I did showed that there might be as close to $400 million in investment that came into the tech space generally last year. That's a significant sum to a market where there was nothing of that nature some 10 years ago.
Yeah.
From an investor's perspective, what is driving this? What's giving these guys the confidence that they can put a lot of money in technology companies driven by local entrepreneurs, focusing almost exclusively at times on the Nigerian market?
No, you're very right. Well, it's in fact, I think last year was about 650 million into Nigerian tech sector, with over $1 billion into the continent. And if you look at that upward fundraising trend in the continent, over 90 African companies raised over $1 million. And beyond that as well, which was actually quite significant, is that you also have market entry by more traditional players, big banks, corporate VCs, sovereign wealth funds, and the like. If you drill down, actually, which is quite interesting, into those deals, you find that a majority of those deals were targeted at companies that had a Pan-African strategy to their business. And that signals to me two things. It's one, that in actual fact, the tech ecosystem is maturing on the continent, primarily in this case, Nigeria.
What is driving perception that fintech is an area of growth, especially for investors who are looking at the African space?
If we break it down, into its most fundamental components, financial services have, three core functions: transfer, store of value, and space. So by that I mean payments and banking, the transfer or storage of value and time. This is financing, investments, and the like. And lastly, managing entropy. So, entropy of value being things like insurance. And so when you look at the technological and institutional changes that have been created, the conditions for fundamental rethinking of how and where the core functions and finance are delivered, the whole notion of embedded finance, as it were, that's where I think there's been a fantastic opportunity for innovation on the continent and on a global level. You see the likes of, the super apps, who are now being able to, have that embedded finance feature within a majority of what it is they do. As Namdi mentioned, the fact that Konga is an e-commerce platform, but is able to then bring out Konga Pay. That in itself may not necessarily be. I don't think it was in the early beginnings of how they may have thought how e-commerce would have operated. But along the lines, these are the sorts of innovations that have been able to capture, I guess, public sentiment. By public sentiment, I mean investor sentiment, because these are models that are able to drive significant revenue. I was reading yesterday, Orange Mobile has just launched mobile money in Morocco. This is now 18 countries in Africa that Orange Mobile Money is now operating in. And you already mentioned about GTB going after the fintech. So in terms of financial services, I think that is always going to be a significant driver to being able to promote the well-being of any individual. And that necessarily, and I think that primarily is the reason why fintech is such a huge industry. It's not to say that other industries aren't worth and shouldn't be worth their own consideration, but you can see how, being able to, find the basic necessities required for life, being able to get your food, being able to get from A to B, being able to pay school fees, being able to, get an insurance product for your workers, whether it be health, whether it be transport. All of these are very significant, and I think that's probably one of the main reasons behind the drive towards financial services.
How do you see the investment space shaping up post COVID-19? Because I think that's something that we all really need to be thinking about, especially those that are thinking about fundraise at this time.
Yeah. I think it's a good question, and thank you for bringing me back to it. It's, post COVID-19, we all have to also take into consideration that, in all likelihood, there's going to be a global economic recession. So, that being said, I think there will be a lot of deals that will still occur, because it's definitely going to move away from, I guess, founder friendly to, I guess, an investor. Not investor friendly, but let's say valuations may not be as magnificent as they used to be, which in itself is not a bad thing at all, because I personally feel that higher valuations a lot of the time set companies up in a bad way, because it pushes you into if you're nobody wants to raise, nobody wants to have a down round. Internal, even if you go through an internal round, nobody wants to do that. Investors are going to be looking really, really hard at companies' unit economics and the fundamentals. The fundamentals being those sound economics, sound teams, killer teams, and the ability to scale. So if you have that, irrespective of what economy you're operating in, I believe that the savvy investor would certainly be looking out for deals of that type. And it doesn't really matter whether you're in an economic downturn or not. So in terms of the actual drivers, I think those won't change much. Sound unit economics, fantastic founders, fantastic teams, and the ability to scale and scale really well.
Hopefully, like you said, deals will still happen. Maybe it's an opportunity for founders to also reset and rethink valuation, and maybe that makes it work for both founders and investors.
Hope you enjoyed our panel discussion with Deji. We will round up our interview series with another guest next week. In the meantime, for other tech-related stories and articles, please make sure you check out TechRoundup.tv. Some of the headlines this week include Facebook new video chat features, the CBN postponement of changes to MFB regulation, and what tech companies can learn from Zoom's address of security concern of its products. As always, we love to hear your comments and feedback, so please connect with me on LinkedIn at Wale Farron and subscribe to the Tech Roundup YouTube channel if you haven't done so. Also like us on Facebook and be part of our vibrant tech community. And lastly, Tech Roundup is back on radio. Catch us on 99.3 FM Nigeria Info every Wednesday from 11:30 a.m. Have a great weekend, guys. Stay safe and have a good weekend. Good night.